Hello, you noble people. My name is the Noble, and today we're going to be talking everything Danganronpa. I know my previous video on Danganronpa did not do too hot, and I'm going to kind of talk about that in a separate video that I want to make talking about YouTube yet again, but I feel like this one is warranted with how YouTube is handling some stuff. But this video is going to be kind of a big action-packed video. We're going to be reading, first off, this interview with Sakuraiba Shohei. Sorry if I mispronounced that. This is the producer of Spike Chunsoft and is one of the people who has helped make Danganronpa, like pretty much all of them. I think maybe he didn't work on some of them. I'm not 100% sure. But this is a translated interview that he had talking about Danganronpa 2x2, and I want to read through this. Apparently there's some interesting tidbits in this, and then after we do that, I'm actually going to go into kind of some theory crafting territory, talking about who I think is going to be some of the victims and who I think is going to be some of the culprits in this new scenario that we'll get next year for Danganronpa 2x2. Hope you all enjoy, and let's hop into it. Considering this announcement at the Danganronpa's 15th anniversary, what is the intention behind making this new title plus remake on the foundations of Danganronpa 2 instead of the first one? And the response, the first idea we considered to remake and reboot for Danganronpa 1. The starting concept for the project was changing the plot without changing the lore and cast, but we eventually realized Danganronpa 1's narrative was too central to Danganronpa, and making changes to it would have too many consequences for the rest of the series. This is a big thing. A lot of Danganronpa tubers and like fans have been speculating on like Twitter, Reddit, Tumblr, and everything. Basically, if they're going to have a Danganronpa to change and edit the story, it makes sense that it's the second one. Spoilers ahead for Danganronpa 2, but the idea and the big twist at the end is that it is all in a simulation, and technically speaking, no one actually dies. They just think that they are dead, thus they're pretty much comatose in the real world. So the idea that they can try and change it via an instance that happens in the story makes sense. But the big thing that I think is very interesting is that they wanted to do it without changing the lore and specifically the cast, meaning that we're most likely not going to get like any new characters. I know a lot of people had theories about the possibility, since there's a boat in the first picture, in one of the pictures we got of the new story. People thought there might be a chance that some of the surviving cast members from Danganronpa 1 actually appear in this instead of waiting to like the final chapter when they usually appear. Maybe it will change and they would actually be part of the killing game again. But for the sake of them saying that they don't want to change the lore and cast, means they probably won't change anything. So we'll probably have still kind of a similar story route, possibly. In this new scenario, is there going to be the original Danganronpa 2 plot with different twists, or is it going to be actually change everything from the moment they set foot on Jabberwock Island? The latter. You nailed the description. It starts with the same exact lead-in, then a special event happens during the intro, and the narrative begins to greatly deviate to it. I must add that it is not a split route. The new scenario and the remake are laid out as two completely independent games. So that is big. When we learned that it's going to have around the same amount content, a lot of people thought that maybe the intro, like the prologue, and then chapter 1 towards the beginning is kind of the same, and then we have a choice that completely changes what happens. But the fact of it is, if this is something happening during the intro, this makes me think that something happens during the prologue that causes something really big to happen. And that was also a lot of people's worries, mine included. In the new scenario, if it's going to be just different twists and doesn't change enough, it might be kind of a dud later into the game. Like I said previously, with the fact that they're all in a simulation, that's a big reveal at the end. So for the final chapter to just be that again feels really underhanded, and it would probably be a little bit of a slog of a chapter when in the reality, in the normal game, it's a really big reveal that everything isn't a simulation, because you get your hopes up that your friends might be alive, but then the reality sets in that they most likely won't be able to be revived. There's so much going on with the ending, and just have that again could be not as impactful. So the fact that it's going to be they're like two completely independent games makes me feel like this is going to be completely rechanged, and maybe the characters who die in this new scenario are actually dead, which would have really big impacts if they want to like continue and actually make another game after this, which I don't know if they would, considering how V3 kind of wrapped everything up with it being kind of like pretty much there's no way they could make another one. It doesn't really leave that open to interpretation, except with a different route like this. So we'll just have to wait and see with that. Does that mean all relevant plot points from stories set before Danganronpa 2, Danganronpa 0, that's a novel, Danganronpa Another Episode, Ultra Despair Girls, are still canonical to 2x2? Exactly. So that means that's all canon, but this next line completely contradicts that. Wait, so it's going to be a new version that doesn't continue into Danganronpa 3 side feature. Danganronpa 3 is one of the animes. So there's Danganronpa 1, which is pretty much a retelling of what happens in the first game, but an anime. The second one, 2.5, is kind of talking about what happened during their stay at Hope's Peak. And then the third one is kind of like what happens after the events of Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls, like everything, and it's also not that good. It wasn't written the best, and there's a lot of plot points that kind of convoluted, so I personally would not be bad if they were to retcon this, but the fact of it is that like you have to play the game to find yourself how 2x2 ends. It feels like they're going to kind of change it. Spoilers, but for the end of Danganronpa 3, that anime, all of the characters, minus Chiaki, because Chiaki arc died beforehand, are dead. Or, I'm sorry, are alive. I completely butchered that. They are alive, and it kind of ends on a happy note, which is cool, but at the same time, the build-up to get there is kind of anticlimactic, and it's not that good, and people don't really like it, and I have mixed feelings on it impersonally as well. So we're just going to have to kind of hope that this is different. Whether they're going to retcon this or they're going to completely change it is different. Because it's interesting that they say these are still plot relevant, but then Danganronpa 3 doesn't say exactly with that. So that's interesting. Danganronpa 2 introduced new class trial mini-games from the Rebuttal Showdown, Logic Dive, and others. Is gameplay aside also going to change? This will be announced at a later date. I know a lot of people are hoping that we get some new stuff. I personally, the only thing that I would want to necessarily change from the base game is I hope we would get some scrum debates. Scrum debates were one of the things that I really liked in V3. We would only have maybe one, I think it was one each trial, and they were really fun. Just being able to like have like an actual like two-way fight between the entire class is a cool thing to have, and I feel like that would be cool if they were to introduce that into this, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see because it says a later date. We already know that the setting for Jabbok Island and the core cast of characters is still the same, but what about the voiced cast? Thankfully, we managed to rehire the same voice actors for every character without replacements. Now, I will say, we don't know how that is going to be for the English. Most likely, it does say without replacements, but for those, the next one kind of contradicts that. You have hired new voices for Monokuma since DR3 and Monomi, because those three previous voice actors sadly passed away, so they hired new voice actors and will announce the appropriate occasion to look forward to it. So when it does say we hired the same voice actors without replacements, I don't know if that's angled more towards the Japanese voice actors or the English. I'm hoping the English voice cast is the same. I feel like if I don't hear Bryce Papankok be Nagito, I feel like that would be a little sad. And also Gundam's voice actor, I feel like Gundam's voice actor nails it. I forget what his name is. But I feel like if they weren't the same voice actor, that would kind of take away from some moments, especially Monokuma's voice actor in English. So hopefully we will get that, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. I'd also like to ask a few questions about Danganronpa 2's remake. What's new about the remake? The script is largely untouched. We rewrote it to fit in within new gameplay mechanics, so we might get the scrum debates. All characters were redrawn, and the Jabalek Ion's backgrounds were redesigned. The hotel in particular had its design altered completely, with a heavy emphasis on the feeling of a tropical resort. That is what a lot of people saw. Usually, the original one kind of looked like just like a normal stone building. I think I like the redesign a lot better. I know a lot of people were kind of worried that some of the aspects of like the farm and stuff didn't really look too much cartoonish, and one of the points is there's supposed to be some kind of cartoony elements to kind of showcase that they are in a simulation, but maybe that's changed within the story, I don't know. But it also, I still think the new backgrounds and the way they are designed are really, really cool. Well, the game can still contain the bonus Dangan Island minigame and the Magical Girl Miracle Monomi. Those were minigames, and then this will be announced at a later date. Will the remake use the same voice lines as the original, or will include re-recordings and performances by new actors? All voice lines were re-recorded for the remake. As I already mentioned, we managed to hire all the voice actors from the original except for Monokuma and Monomi. So, we're most likely going to have re-record. Now, we're not 100% sure, again, if this is the English as well. I would kind of assume that it would be English. I don't understand why they would do the Japanese and then not re-record it for the English. Unless the other actors had stuff going on. I guess we won't know. What's the expected length of the new scenario? The same as the original or longer. Now, this is the big one. It does say on the website that it's around the same amount of content, but content doesn't mean expected normal length. You can just say in terms of content and gameplay there's the same, but in terms of like actual story and dialogue and voice acting and whatnot, might not be as in normal amount of content or like length, if that makes sense. Like a lot of people, me included, thought that like something happens in the middle of chapter 1 that causes like the deviation to happen in the scenario. With this interview, we learned that it most likely will happen in the prologue. So the fact that this could be longer than the base game is actually a really cool thing. Are Kodaka and Komatsu from Tokyo Games involved in this production? Yes, Kodaka is one of the role story supervisors, original idolizer, and the murder mystery creator of this game. Tokyo Games is involved as the production, as are we. Will the 15th anniversary event on November 2025 have playtest booths announced for 2x2? Yes, that is the early playtest opportunity. Now, this is not for technically a me. This is going to be more towards, I think it is an in-person event in Japan. So maybe if you guys are going to Japan in November, you'll be able to playtest this. But we will most likely learn some new information about this when this comes out, so stay tuned for November because we're probably going to get new information for the game when that happens. Any final messages to readers who are excited for the new game? Thank you for your patience, fans. We can finally deliver you a new Danganronpa. The game is a reboot / remake, but with a brand new story. I hope you're looking forward to the release as soon as you find out what the future has in for Hinata, Komaeda, and the Danganronpa series. Now, one big thing that people saw at the end of this is, one, the fact that he specifically calls out Hinata and Komaeda, or Nagito and Hajime. Hajime is the main character, Nagito obviously is the antagonist. But the fact that he calls them out is a big stuff because they're one of the two most important characters. But also, the fact that this says reboot. Is this kind of a subtle hint that they're going to use this new alternate story to actually kind of soft reboot the franchise? Because if I'm going to be honest, V3 was kind of made because of the success 2 had. If you don't know, 1 did okay, I believe. Danganronpa 1 did okay, But when it came to Danganronpa 2 with like PSP and stuff, it did really, really well. And then eventually, in 2017, they finally made Danganronpa V3. The problem with V3 is how bad the ending is with it. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot. And we've had kind of spiritual successors, if that makes sense. Raincode, I played through, but I'm gonna be honest, Raincode is kind of meh. There's DLC for Raincode. I didn't bother reading into it. They kind of fumbled the ending with Raincode, in my opinion. There was some cool story elements, but in the majority of it was kind of just like, it's okay, but it just kind of feels like you tried to make a Danganronpa game, but failed really badly with some of the twists and turns. 100 Line Last Defense Academy. I love that game. 100 Line is really, really well written. Some of the paths and some of the endings, I mean, it has 100 endings. Not all of them are going to be superb, but a lot of them and how they are written are very impactful and really good. And some of it made me cry at some points. It's a very, very well thought out game. There are some aspects that I don't quite like. When I played the game, I didn't really like the fighting mechanics. I still don't like that. I mainly played it for the story elements, so I didn't care too much about the fighting aspects, but it was still a good game. But it didn't fully scratch the itch that Danganronpa would have, and now that they're possibly going to be using this new segment for a reboot of the franchise and kind of writing themselves out of the whole V3 had, opens it up for us to possibly have a brand new Danganronpa game vastly down the line. I don't think it's going to be the case of we get this and then after everyone finishes the scenario of 2, we immediately get Danganronpa 4 or whatever like that. If we're going to get a brand new Danganronpa game, not a re-release or anything, it's going to be way down the line. But the fact of it is that the fact that it's a reboot kind of as well makes me feel like that they want to try and keep with this characters. I mean, it is their cash cow, and I'm hoping that we can see more, because even if some of the games are bad and some of the content can be kind of repetitive and kind of predictable or kind of all over the place with its twists, I'm still very much looking forward to stuff. Now, I do kind of want to get into some of my predictions I have with this new scenario, specifically who I think is going to die first. Hajime. I straight up think Hajime is going to be the first victim, and I'm not actually alone in this. So a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, want them to do something that they really haven't had the guts to do, and that is kill off a main character in a unique way that they haven't been able to do yet. With Kaede, they made Kaede the culprit of a case, and while I did like that twist, the ending of In the Last Trial kind of undermines that twist for me. And the whole idea is that Monokuma is supposed to respect the rules, so the fact that they broke the rules for it feels kind of like stupid. And while I did like the twist at chapter 1, the twist is kind of worn off of me, and also I much prefer Kaede as a protagonist than I do Shuichi. So the fact that we lost Kaede and we didn't get to have we had Shuichi for the rest of the game is a little underwhelming. Now Hajime, I will say Hajime's character is interesting because the idea is he's supposed to be kind of a blank slate, and he does get some development, but most of the development you do see is actually from the anime and actually already knowing his kind of character arc, and then you can kind of piece things together. But if they're going to try and make this new scenario really, really different, it would be cool if our main character was a victim. Not a culprit, a victim. And I think a lot of people agree that there is 100% a chance where maybe that boat in somewhere, Hajime goes to the boat, maybe by himself, someone's there, they see the opportunity, they kill him, and then we swap POVs. And there is a lot of good options for a POV character. I have two big ones that I think would be interesting as a POV character. Technically three. The one that's kind of the lesser one, I think Chiaki might be an interesting POV character, but I think that would be kind of weird to have her be the POV character because she's supposed to kind of help you, and I don't really know what her role would be within this new story. So that's kind of like, I would be okay with that, but I wouldn't be necessarily ecstatic. The two ones that I would actually really want there to be is, I would really want either to be the main character playing as the ultimate imposter, or where is she? Naegi, no. Oh, they have the anime characters in this list. That's funny. Where is it? Oh, is it not? Is this character not here? The character is just not in this list. That would be really funny. Mikan, it's Marumi, or Mahiru, not Marumi. Marumi is like completely. Is Mahiru just not on this list? That's kind of funny. Here, let me just go into the wiki. It should have. Oh, that's the. Yeah, I want Mahiru to be the main character. That's what a lot of people say they want to be the kind of main character. The kind of. Stupid ads. The kind of big idea for each main character we've had is having a talent that's kind of helpful when it comes to investigating at least some parts, or it's just basic intuition. Obviously, Makoto is supposed to be like the ultimate hope, and he has a story arc. With Hajime, the idea is that he still is kind of like Izuru, so he can still kind of use his logic and stuff, and he also has his friends to back him up. And then obviously Shuichi is the ultimate detective. Kaede is the one oddball because she's the ultimate pianist, so that one doesn't really align correctly. But also that's to divert expectations. But the, Mahiru being the ultimate photographer fits her to be a really good character when it comes down to being the main character, being able to analyze, take pictures, fully understand what's going on and during a scene. I feel like that would be cool. And also, she's one of the few characters that I feel like would do really well being a protagonist. When we've had a different protagonist, obviously we have internal dialogue, and I feel like having her internal dialogue and stuff was really would be more interesting. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like she would be the most interesting protagonist there, except possibly Nagito, but Nagito is only a protagonist for a little bit in chapter 4, so I don't think that really counts too much. But I feel like you could read through her entire thing, like everything that happens in the second trial and whatnot. There's so much that goes on that I feel like she would make a really good main character, and that's the big thing that I want to happen. Now, when it comes down to who I want to be the culprit that would kill Hajime, I actually do kind of have an idea. Out of all of the characters, I don't really know who would be like other than Hajime, I have no idea who would be the culprit in the first case. Like, my immediate gut reaction would go to Teruteru, since I just don't like him as a character. But unironically, I can 100% see Soda being the culprit. I could see it possibly, maybe Nagito becomes the culprit really early on. I could see anyone. The only people that I do not see being culprits immediately, at least, would be characters that were already culprits. So I don't see where Teruteru could be a culprit, Peko, Gundam, could be a culprit. Mikan. I feel like if they're going to be culprits, maybe it would be out of order. So maybe Gundam could kill like chapter 1 instead of chapter 4. That could be a case. But who knows? Maybe we could have. Maybe the ultimate imposter kills Hajime. That could be really cool. Maybe like Akane or Nekomaru. Like they're just they don't really have too much going on in their character that much. So the idea that they could at least character displayed in the game, actually, if not counting free time events. I want to keep that in mind because the characters do have a lot of stuff in their free time events. But that's the biggest wish list thing that I'm hoping for. If we don't see a main character die in the next scenario, I'm gonna be kind of disappointed. Also, just because I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to play the game again as Hajime for like 30 plus hours again. I do like Hajime, he's okay, but as a protagonist, he's definitely, in my opinion, the weakest out of the main protagonists. The best is like a decent split between Shuichi and Makoto. I personally lean towards more Makoto because I just like him more as a character. But Hajime is he's just kind of there, I guess, if that makes sense, and that's kind of the point of his character. But there's other characters there that can kind of just be there, but they still have a character. I mean, Aoi does that in Danganronpa 1 and whatnot. I mean, Sonya is just kind of there, but she's like a good character. I like her more than Hajime and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, out of all the cast of Good Die to Spare, there's not a character that I necessarily hate. I don't like Teru because they just made the character a pervert character, which is so stupid. But there's no character here that I outright am like, this is like really bad. Hyoko can be kind of annoying. Like I said, Teru can be annoying. The only one that I'm like don't have really any feelings about is Hajime, and that's why I want Mahiru to kind of be the new main character. Now for Trial 2, I don't really have any ideas for Trial 2. However, I do 1,000,000% have an idea about what the third trial should be. There was a thing with third trials in every Danganronpa game. The third trial is always the double murder. We always get a double murder. And they are always the worst case in the game. That is just always the case. It's double the effort for usually really obvious reasons. And in my opinion, they get kind of progressively worse. I feel like Danganronpa 2's is kind of believable. As a matter of fact, I originally thought it could have been possibly Gundam for this third murder, and then eventually I'm like, oh, it's probably just Mikan. That makes the most sense, and it was. But the idea of killing multiple people when you want to kill one person and get away with it doesn't make sense. And Danganronpa 2 is the only one that does it, where Mikan had to kill an extra person because she would have gotten caught. That makes sense. In the Danganronpa 1, like Hifumi, I forget, like Hifumi was like tricked by Celeste. It was like really convoluted and stupid, and there's no reason for him to like work with her. It's really dumb. V3 is super weird. I like you didn't need to make, like, Korakiro was already a mysterious character, but like you made him immediately my least favorite character in the game just by making him the culprit of that, making him really weird. You did not need to do that. And like the killing of Tenko was so predictable. You knew what was going to happen. You're like, it has to be someone in this room. This is stupid. So that was really bad. What I'm hoping happens is that in V3, Monokuma had a rule that was not utilized, and it was really stupid. The rule he made was that if there is a double murder or a double murder occurs, only the first victim counts. So you have to figure out which one chronologically would happen. In the case of V3, it was very obvious that who died first because Tenko was still alive when they found Angie's dead. So that was the case with that one. But if one thing that I want the killing in the third trial of the new scenario is that we actually do have two separate culprits, and it comes down to a choice on the time frame. It literally will come down to a choice on the time frame that these two culprits, I don't really know who would be the culprits in this case. If it were to have to be something, I feel like if Nagito was a culprit at this point and he was still alive and he was the culprit, and then he turned out like he was perfectly fine with being the murderer or not being the murderer, that could be interesting. But I feel like it would be more interesting if it was a different character. I'm not really sure who. But the idea that we will have a murderer in our midst after that. They kind of did that with Maki being the ultimate assassin. And then in Danganronpa 1, we have Genocide Jack and Jill. But it doesn't land as much as it does with knowing, like Ibuki killed Chiaki. Like, just having Ibuki still be in the main group, that atmosphere, it has so much more to exploring, and it also gives a new perspective into their characters of how they're viewing the situation on being trapped in this island. And I feel like if that comes down to the case, it could be really big. With Nagito already solidified him as one of my favorite characters because he did attempt to make a murder, but he wasn't able to fully go through with it. If we have a character who actually kills and goes through, like, heck, like, Peko has already been a culprit in the trial 2. If she kills someone and then we just live with her, like, still being with us because she didn't kill someone else, or didn't kill someone first, that could be a really good twist, and I really hope something like that happens. But let me know your thoughts. I really like this interview. I had a lot of fun actually editing this video as well. I tried to do my best. I hope this video does well. I'm going to be planning on talking about YouTube in a newer, different video, as well as my time with my job that I do not have anymore. I'll talk about that also a little bit, probably on stream. But I'm super excited. You can tell how excited I am for this game. I'm hoping it comes out early. If we're gonna get a play test of this game in November, I'm crossing my fingers for a January-February release of this game. That would give me literally an entire year to lord over and play through that entire game. I mean, it's a big game. It's definitely like multiple hours. I'm definitely gonna try and do all of the free time events with the characters and stuff like that. I mean, this is my favorite Danganronpa game, except we have new victims and culprits. I could not ask for more. So yeah, I'm super stoked. Let me know what you think. Stay noble. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.